trucks, the police cars, and your public works vehicles. Robin Bertagna is your finance director. Arnaldo Rodriguez in the back is your development services director. Darren Gale, who will give the presentation momentarily, is in charge of economic growth and public affairs. We also have our deputy director of public works overseeing engineering, Ben Moody, in the audience as well. So this is intended to be a very organic process. Terrell Locke in the back with Anna as well. So Terrell is my assistant in the city manager's office. She's hiding back there from me. I was going to say it's a very organic process. We did this previously, and after the presentation, any questions that you have, the reason why we have these folks here tonight is because they're your resident experts in the respective areas. We will do our best to answer your questions this evening. By this point in the process, we should have answers to every single question you ask. But of course, if we do not, we will follow back with you promptly. So with that, I'd like to introduce Darren Gale to go through the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. As Steve mentioned, my name is Darren Gale. I'm an Economic Growth and Public Affairs Manager for the City of Yuba City, and I'm also a project manager on the annexation. And full disclosure, I also live within this area. So a little bit about the annexation and this process that we've gone through. So in order for a city to move forward, or any jurisdiction to move forward with changing their boundaries, you have to go through what's called LAFCO, the Local Area Formation Commission. To kind of give you an idea of how long this has taken, the city began a process in actually 2015. We filed an application with LAFCO in April of 2016, and LAFCO finally approved moving forward with going forward with an election on December 22nd of 2016. I would like to mention that an election is actually not required by law for an annexation, but the city requested that, and it provides the residents the opportunity, in this case, to vote for an annexation. And on your June 5th ballot, Measure Z is about the annexation. So a little bit what we've done. So after we submitted our application, we held a number of public meetings right here at Lindcrest School. I know a few of you were able to attend. We're doing our best to get out and answer questions. I've heard from residents say, hey, I've never heard. Well, that's why we're having these meetings, and I think in total now we've sent at least 5 mailers. Early on, we just sent it to every single property. The mailer that you received in the mail, we sent to all households that had a registered voter, since they're the ones who get to vote on this. It's not voted by property owner, it's not voted by a renter, it's voted by anyone within the affected area that is a registered voter. And we've also have a website which is just yubacity.net/annexation. These are just a few of the mailers that went out. We have frequently asked questions as you walk out, or when you walked in. If you didn't grab one, please take one, and you can always take extra and take them to your neighbors. And everything that we have here is also online at the yubacity.net/annexation. If you forget whereabouts, go to the front page, and there's actually a little sign that says, for more information about the annexation. It's a nice big block about a quarter of the way down on the left-hand side. What are the objectives about the annexation? There's 2 things. One is unifying an urban area. And then finally is satisfying what's called our master tax sharing agreement between the city and the county, and I'll talk about both of those real quick. So unifying areas within the city's growth boundaries. The city has a growth boundaries that's about 25 square miles. And currently in the city we have 15 square miles. The area in which you live is the area that is commonly referred to by residents as the Keyhole, or South Yuba City. The area is what some people like to call is kind of an island or a peninsula. And it already has provided many city services. And this project would be to unify that one area and to be able to provide the full level of urban services from the city. The objective as it relates to the tax agreement, the city has a tax sharing agreement. It was adopted in 2000 between the city and the county, and it was reauthorized in 2007. And it really guides the financial policies of any type of development within the sphere of that growth boundary of the city. And both the city and the county's general plan assumes that all of the areas within our growth boundaries at one time will become part of the incorporated city. And one of the reasons why the city initiated this process is we have residents who live in this area. So this, just so you kind of know the map, this is Bow Road, and this is Highway 99, north-south, and this is the Keyhole area. This area right here that's in blue, outside of the crossed areas, that is currently within the city of Yuba City, but it's being provided the Sheriff's Service. And it's all part of the tax sharing agreement. It would be inefficient for either the city or the county to try to provide services just to one of those. And part of the process that we're going through has to do with providing public safety for this area. And I will talk a little bit more about public safety here in a minute. Which leads us to specifically to our police service. One of the benefits to an annexation is number one, there is no additional taxes placed upon the property. That cannot be done. Only residents can actually go through a voting process to actually place a tax on you. Now, all it takes is 50% of your neighbors to say yes to that. So you might vote no, but as long as 50% of your neighbors or a community votes yes, there could be a tax or any type of fee placed on you. So a little bit about our police services. Currently, the city has 5 beats. Each beat is kind of a geographical area where one officer is assigned. And they have 3 shifts, chief, throughout the day. Is that correct with the police department?
2 on 1 on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, 12-hour shifts. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we have 10-hour shifts.
10-hour shifts. Great, thank you, Chief. So at any given time, there's 5 officers that are actively patrolling and responding to calls within these beats. And on top of that, they have a sergeant who is a supervisor that is also out in the field working with those 5 officers. So in a total, you have six officers currently today that are actively patrolling and responding to calls within a 15 square mile area. If this annexation is successful, the city will actually add 1 additional beat. So now we will have 6 total beats. So that will mean that there will be 7 officers, so 6 officers, 1 sergeant, actively patrolling and responding to calls across now what would be almost 16 square miles of an area with this annexation looking at the Walton area. Currently today, the service that's being provided by the sheriff, they do a yeoman's job, they do a great job. Currently there's about 3 deputies on any given evening, and they're covering a 608 square mile area. So that goes all the way to the Butte County line, so right at Gridley, and then down to the south to the Sacramento line, so East Nicholas. And there's 3 deputies that are responding to calls within that area. The city obviously has a different level of service, and that is one of the issues that we've talked about that would be a change if the annexation is successful. A little bit more about that kind of city services. You met all the departments and all the service they talk about. Economic development services, animal services, police, fire, public safety, finance, parks and recs, and probably many of you actually are on water systems. That's a city-owned system. If you have a well, that would not change with the annexation. Same thing if you have a septic tank, that would not change. The only thing that would change is currently today, if you were not connected to city water, and you came to the city and you asked to connect, you would not be able to. You have to be within the incorporated city in order to connect, have a new connection for city water or city sewer. And currently you cannot do that today if you live within this area. What are the changes? If you have an alarm permit, there is a change. The city has a requirement for alarm permit. It costs $43.50. That alarm permit is good for 3 years. And your first alarm permit, as long as you went in and actually applied for it, that first year would be free for your first 3 years. A little bit about burglar alarms. First of all, it's anytime the city receives a burglar alarm call, we always have a 2-person or /car response. And 99% of calls are false alarms, and it's the 3rd most common call for service. And so one of the reasons for having that permit, and Ms. Rent will answer questions at the end, is obviously to deal with this. When our officers go out to a home, there's a permit. We know exactly who manages the alarm, and we also have contact information for the property owners. So not only can they check the property, they can also make a phone call if needed. And it improves responses of public safety to contact the property owner. So just, we'll get to Q&As really quick, Ms. Wren, at the end. Just a few of the things that people have brought up. First, the question is, will my property taxes increase? No, they cannot with an annexation. 2, your sales tax. Your sales tax is based upon where you purchase your goods. So I think many of us probably shop at Winco or Raley's or Bel Air. You pay the sales tax that's the city of Yuba City has. And if the city was ever to put a sales tax measure on the ballots, residents of this area would not be able to vote on that tax measure. However, they would still be subject to it because you would probably be shopping in those areas. Pension debt. The city has a pension debt. Properties are not leveraged to pay off the pension debt. That is paid for out of the city's general fund. So there's no difference being in the city or county. Your property is not going to be negatively impacted as a result of any pension debt that either the city or the county has. Permit fees. The city and county both have permit fees. Some of ours are higher, some of ours are lower. It just depends on what it is. I can tell you we're more expensive for a water heater, and the county's a little less. But in general, fees are similar, but they're not exactly the same by any means. Business license. The city does have a business license, and any home-based business that's in this area, or any business that's located in this area, would be required to have a business license. On average, a small home-based business is under $50. Is that correct, Robert? So right around $50, and it is an annual business license fee that's required. Water and sewer connections, I already talked about that. Currently, a property within this area is unable to connect to city water or city sewer. Sidewalks, if you don't have sidewalks, you won't have sidewalks unless you want to pay for them. Really the same issue between the city and the county. We will tell you that the city is constantly going after grants to provide safe routes to school. We have a project going actually on Franklin Road to put some additional sidewalks, drainage in, and that's a partnership between the city and the county. Code enforcement. The city does have a code enforcement officer. That's Arnaldo Rodriguez, our development services director that you met, overseas. We respond to calls. We have enough work by people putting in on their YC311 app. We have a community app where people can make phone calls. And we are just reactive to when people go out and tell us about an issue in a neighborhood. But we do actively enforce code enforcement. Trash cans were questions. Our rule is 24 hours, I believe, that the trash can, is that right, Arnold? 24 hours that a trash can is supposed to be out. I don't know, I don't think anyone likes seeing trash cans out all week. Burn piles, the rule's the same. Right now, the rule is that you're not supposed to be using any type of burn piles on your property. The rules would remain the same. And then finally, elected representation. Right now, the city council provides your water service. They set your fees, and you don't have the ability to vote for them one way or the other. And there are some properties that also have sewer connections that you don't have that ability to vote for them. And again, if there was ever any type of revenue measure that the city would put on the ballot, the city council, again, residents of this area would not have the ability to vote on that one way or the other. So how to connect with us? Here's an email, annexation@yubacity.net, a phone number, and that's the website again. And at this time, we would, I'll turn it back over to Kim, and Kim will kind of help answer any questions. I know that we have Chris Starkey, who is recording this for Facebook Live for some of the residents. So we'll try to keep a mic. So when you have a question, if you could ask it on the mic, and then we'll have people respond.
And I'm just going to clarify a few things very quickly, and then I'll take questions. Darren mentioned about taxes and that you have to put it on a ballot for people to vote on, or you'd have to do a mail ballot election. That's true if you live in the county or in the city. There are rules, it's called Proposition 218. There are rules regarding how we can impose taxes, fees, and assessments. So that's true no matter where you live. The other thing is with the business permit, if you do any business within the city limits, whether your business is located within the city limits, you're still required to have a City of Yuba City business license, and they will be tracking that, and eventually they'll catch up with you. So that's really no different. If you have a business, you'll be paying that anyway. And I think that was the last thing I noted. So we'll start with questions, and then we have a whole host of people, experts here.
My name is Michael. I live on Frankway. And the question I have is actually, first of all, the statement is I'm not for or against the annexation, but I do have a concern that came about when I was doing a remodel on my home. I wanted to put a swimming pool in, but directly behind my home is the old well that was used to be Fort Hillcrest Water or whatever it is up here. And it's now, there's no pump in it, it's completely discontinued, but it still exists. So I wanted to put a swimming pool in, but everybody else had a swimming pool around me. Grandfather did, but I couldn't because I was within 150 feet of a well, and what that made a difference is I needed to have replacement lines for my septic tank. And because you need 400 feet of replacement lines. So when I was discussing this with the county, you cannot put a leach line in within 150 feet of a well. So this was all new laws that had been placed since the time that those homes were built, you understand? So it's new code. Well, the problem is that now, according to the county, if my sewer fails, I no longer have replacement space. There's no, even though I have the land, I have no place to put it because I'm within 150 feet. But I'm not alone. See, I don't mean to only mention my own problem. There's several houses that are within 150 feet around that one particular well. So it's not just about the pool. Now I've got a problem with my leach line. So, where this even gets more interesting is the school where we stand today. Because when I was there, according to environmental health at the county, she said, or he, or she, I'm not going to say which one, which I already did. She was talking about one of the things that was very concerning is this school, when it was built, it had so many students, but each time that you add one of those buildings and you add more students, it's like adding another bedroom to your home. And that's what determines the size of your leach field. So they've added a lot more students, but they've never increased the size of this septic tank in the leach field that's here in the school. The problem is that she says even if they were praying that it did not fail because they do not have the replacement area for the leach field at this school. Because it requires more than just 400 feet. So they do not have the replacement area for the replacement of that leach field currently at this school. Okay, so he said that thankfully, hopefully, this was their words, that it gets annexed to the city because it would no longer be the problem. That is their words. It'll be your problem. It'll be our problem. So even though there's no increasing of taxes, how does the city plan on combating this problem? And because it's a problem that exists for this school, which is a major issue because this thing was built back, I mean, the leach field has already exceeded its lifespan. And for our homes that were purchased and were built in 1970, we're approaching the limit to what, you know, they say that they're supposed to last. What are we going to do? Because there's no sewer that comes past. When they did the sewer, it doesn't come past railroad. What are we going to do?
So I think I heard two questions. First, related to the well in Franquette. And I don't know if Diana, if you have any comments related to that. And then the second question related to septic tanks, and I'll give you a response to that.
All right, good evening. So we are abandoning some of the former groundwater wells. I don't know if specifically the one in Franquette. I'd have to look at that to see if that's one of the ones slated for abandonment. But we're only proposing to retain, I think, 3 of the groundwater wells that are throughout the distribution system. And so there is a possibility that that well could be abandoned. It would go away. So we would take it all out. Correct.
So that's a question related to well. As it relates to septic tanks, if your septic tank fails and you were in the city, you would still go to the environmental health department, and they are the one who regulate your septic tanks. And they would be the ones to tell you what you need to do. There would be no change as relates to a septic tank if you're in the city or in the county, because that is actually overseen by the Sutter County Environmental Health Department.
But that doesn't answer the question.
So yeah.
The question is, like at the school, currently there is no replacement plan for the size of this thing, as well as my home, because I'm within 150 feet of the well. Whether it's defunct or not, because it's so prone to it, it's just saying that. You know, according to county code.
Here, he wants to.
The question is that like this school, I'll just repeat what I said for the kid. Like the school here, like I said, they have no land for the replacement of this leach field. That exists for many of the residences that are near the well, and many of the residences because they need 400 feet of replacement. So we cannot, according to the county, I cannot replace my leach field on my property, even though I have 400 feet, because I'm within the scope of this well. Even though I know she said that thing is on, there's no pump in it, it just exists, okay? However, there is no replacement. Also, about the other wells, I don't know if it's been fixed or whatever, but what about the arsenic and all the problems with the wells? I mean, we're not even utilizing them anymore.
So you're right. Many homes will have issues with their septic tank. And the only way that you would be able to connect to city sewer would be in the city, and the property owners would have to pay for whatever the cost would be to extend the line and to connect to the sewer system. And Diana wants to.
But is it true that if they're in the county and they're not within the city limits, they can't do that?
That is correct.
So you don't have that option if you're not in the city. The only way for you to connect to the city sewer would be to be within city boundaries.
Yeah, what we've done with similar neighborhoods where they've had sewer issues is they annex into the city, but then they also form an assessment district, which allows them to pay for the cost to design and install the sewer lines, and it's paid through their annual property taxes. And so often that'll include the connection fees, it'll include the actual cost for the extension of the sewer line. And so it provides an affordable way for them to spread the cost over a period of time. So that's how we've seen some neighborhoods do it. Other neighborhoods, the property owners have the means to pay for it up front. They hire a contractor, they install it, and they pay the connection fees up front. That's not typical.
We have no sewer lines running past. We have no sewer lines running, city sewer lines running past railroad.
Right, so they would need to extend the sewer lines.
The sewer line wasn't even up that far, from Franquette all the way up the road.
A lot of times what we look at is sewer lift stations, is that there's not enough of a, grade elevation for it to be able to flow through gravity. And so it includes a sewer lift station. similar to a ranchero. And so, but often, the city does not pay to necessarily install the lines up front and then wait for reimbursement. That's a cost that we typically have the property owners bear because you're receiving direct benefit of that.
Okay, I have the same issue. I went to get a building permit, and my house is over off of Jeffrey Road. It's not close to a well. I've got nothing in the backyard. I couldn't meet the new sewer leach line requirements. So basically, you guys have done in reverse condemnation on my property. If my septic system fails, there is no way I can possibly meet what the county is requiring. Now, they told me if we were annexed into the city, hey, you get a building permit, really quick, because at some point you will have a sewer system out there, so it's cool. But as we currently sit, there's a lot of us that cannot meet the requirement no matter what we do. Doesn't matter if we're next to a well, anything else. And it's basically, you guys have done reverse condemnation on us. We cannot replace the system, so basically if our existing septic system fails, what do we do?
But we're addressing this tonight, and I hear what you're saying. We're addressing this tonight from the city perspective, and I think you're speaking to what the county.
No, the county told me point blank, once we got annexed into the city, that issue was removed.
That's not a true statement.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, not a true statement. We'll make sure and call them so that they don't share information, just so we want to make sure everybody understands all the issues. But appreciate your comments.
No, let me tell you, I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
I talked with them, I met with them.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what they said, and that's what they told me.
Yeah, we'll contact them and make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what the reality is, and then we'll meet with you again.
So what you're telling me is if we're annexed into the city, my issue regarding the septic doesn't go away. I'm still not able to comply. If my system fails.
Correct. Unless you
Yes.
pay to hook up to city sewer. But I want to say, but that's not the.
That's inverse condemnation.
Okay.
Are you guys willing to buy my property?
That you're not within city limits, sir. So here's the thing.
If I wind up within the city, I still can't meet the requirements.
You actually have redundancy if you're within city limits, which you don't have right now. So what you have right now in the county is a problem without a solution because you cannot connect to city sewer, even if you chose to do that, if you were not in city limits. So actually by being in the city, at least you have a solution, and that would be to connect to city sewer. There would be some cost on your end to do that. And that's what they were talking about earlier. But it doesn't leave. Okay, it doesn't leave you without options though, but right now you're right. You're in between a rock and a hard place.
Thank you. My name is Bob Renton, Hun Road, near Yuba City, in the keyhole. On the on the septic tank and sewer connection issue, is my understanding, and I'll pose it as a question, that if you are within, your property is within 200 feet of an existing sewer collector lateral, city line or for city wastewater, is that you can go ahead and connect to that city sewer if your septic system fails, if you're within that 200 feet. And there's one other requirement that has to do with your cost of connection to the city is greater than 150%. It's kind of complicated, but anyhow, you can, under county and also state law, connect to city sewer without being in the city. But you do have to be within 200 feet of an existing sewer lateral. And I'll stand if there's any correction of what I said.
So there is a state law that will not allow the county environmental health to permit a new septic tank if they're within 200 feet of an existing sewer line. Of about 1,400 parcels, there's about 40 to 50 parcels within the affected area that meets that definition of being within 200 feet of an existing sewer line. We would still, there's nothing in the law that doesn't say that we can't require them to annex to the city. It just says that the county is not supposed to issue them a new permit. So.
My name is Phil Trainer. I here on a different issue. I am in the city. However, I would object to the annexation because I think the whole city should have to vote on this. There's a lot of expense between the city and the county for this annexation. We bore the brunt of the expense when we went into the city, which goes back to the old Hillcrest water issue, which everybody remembers. It appears that if the Keyhole group are allowed in, you don't have to pay the city any fees for any hookups, etc. Whereas we at the Hillcrest issue, we all have to pay hookup fees, correct?
So everyone who's connected to city water today, which many of the residents within this area have paid a fee. And when they did the conversion from the old Hillcrest system to the new surface water system, I believe the homes on average have about a $20 surcharge. It's a round number. When they went from the old Hillcrest well water to the surface water system. And residents are paying $20 a month. And I don't know exactly how long that lasts, but Mr. Trainer, I could get that back to you.
So
20 years.
So the whole thing is that they actually have city water.
So yes, anybody who's connected to water is connected to the city water system.
Okay, the next thing that I'll bring up is that if we do switch over, if the annexation is successful, we will get the police department taking over from the sheriff's department, correct?
Yes.
If the police department take over, we will have more police on the beat, which costs more money.
Yes.
But the sheriff's department at the county level, they won't reduce their involvement. So we will be paying it. We all belong to the county and the city. No use arguing one way or the other. We all pay both the taxes. So the county's expenses won't go down. The city's expenses will go up. So if we left everything as it is, we would probably end up with a better deal because the city wouldn't have to expend so much money, and the city wouldn't be spending money for something we don't have. Our roads have gone to hell. We don't have any money. The one reason that I came here tonight was I had heard the issue that the city intended to raise the sales tax. The city telling me, no, they're not. If you come up tonight and tell me, Phil, we're not going to raise the sales tax, I'll get up and leave.
So, I hear two questions. One, you oppose the annexation as a result of you're an existing resident and you feel like you're subsidizing services to these new residents. So you think they're getting something for free or at a reduced cost that's coming into the annexation. So there's no additional cost for these residents, so you are correct. Your second question was related to a revenue measure. There's no additional cost for the residents of the affected area, the annexation, to annex into the city. So maybe we can talk about the details, exactly dollars amount, and answer it afterwards. Robin and I would love to talk with you. And let me go to your second one, which you asked is you would be related to a revenue measure, which the city council has not had a discussion related to a revenue measure. And if they have a word, that would be at a public meeting, it'd be publicly noticed, and then residents would have an opportunity to vote. However, the residents of this area, if there was a revenue measure put on the ballot, have no ability to vote on that. Unless they were successful in an annexation, correct. So this is, we follow the state law, but we appreciate your comments, Mr. Chairman.
So the people in the residents and properties in this area are already within the water service. Yes, so that's not any change. Sir, you had a question?
Yes, my name is Tom. I live across the street. How do we find out where the sewage connections are?
I actually have a map, and I can give that to you. And is one of the big. So we have two big maps in the back. One shows sewer lines, Ben, and the other one water lines. And then I do have smaller maps specifically for the affected area that you can take home with you tonight if you'd like.
Okay, now, if my septic tank fails, I was told from a contractor that was out before that they have new equipment and it's mandated that we would have to have all of our septic tanks dug up and all this new system implemented, and he gave me a number of 75K up. Is that true?
I don't know. No, you would not. If you came into the city, would you have to change your septic tank? No. If it failed, like, if your septic tank fails, you would do the same as what you do today. You would go down to the environmental health department and see if you could replace your septic tank. If you were in the city, you would have the ability to connect to city sewer. If you're in the annexation area, you would not have the ability to connect to city sewer, and you would have to continue working with the county and have them try to help you with your problem. Yeah, the 75,000. I do not know, but I know. If I get your phone number, I'll have a septic contractor give you a call, and they can give you an estimate. Was it Thomas? So let's after the meeting, I'll get your contact information and I'll connect you with someone.
Hi, my name is Kathy. I live on Briar Lane. And earlier posted, you had it said it would pass if 50% of the Keyhole residents vote. Yes, it takes 50% for it to go in the direction of a yes vote. Correct? Correct. 50% of those that are registered, or 50% overall?
50% of those who vote. So 50% plus one of, so there's approximately 2,000 registered voters in the area. If 400 show up, as long as 201 say yes, it would be successful. If under 200 voted, or if under 200 said no, if over 200.
I get the 50%. It's just, I wasn't sure because he only sent out flyers to those that were registered.
That's correct.
That was my concern.
So it's only registered voters.
But again, as Darren mentioned earlier, we have to date had 5 community meetings, plus sent out 3 mailers.
5 total mailers.
Yeah, and put ads in the paper. So this outreach has been going on for a long time, and we understand that people are busy. We're trying to catch up with everyone, but yeah, there's.
We've been at the house since November, and we've received no flyers. I got one a few days ago, thought it was mine, I brought it, and tonight I noticed it had someone else's address on it. So we registered about 4 months ago for our Keyhole, so I'm not sure how quickly those flyers get attached to an address.
Yeah, we did it based upon the records that the county provided us about a little over a month ago. But if you give me your information, I'll make sure that you're on any future flyers. We have a question up here.
Hi, I haven't received any flyers and I re-registered.
Okay.
So I live right behind the school.
And I'll get your contact information, and we brought extra flyers that went out.
Yeah, also, if you did not sign in to the sign-in sheet, if you want to leave your email too, we will email you any information we send out as well.
Sorry, I have one more question. It was in regards to one of your slides regarding the police department coming into our area versus the sheriff's department coming into our area. Now, what I heard you say is that if we get annexed, and correct me if I'm wrong, the police department will come in immediately and become a part of our area because we would be Yuba City then. We would no longer be our own little entity with the sheriff's department. Is that true?
So I want to use the word immediate. We actually have time for us to hire the staff to be able to staff our police department so that we can hire the 7 new staff members. So we would have to hire 5 new officers, 1 community service officer, and 1 dispatch. And I forget if we have 6 months or a year, but it's actually in the annexation, our filing, that gives us that time so we can provide you the services that we've told you.
So in other words, the sheriff's department would continue to patrol our area?
Yeah, for about, like I said, it'd be, I forget if it's 6 months or a year. 1 year. 1 year.
Okay, thank you.
And then Cindy.
Oh, hi, I'm Cindy Payne. I live on Richmond Road. Couple of questions. Is this presentation available online?
I will make sure it's on there tonight.
And, okay, cool, thanks. And when will the business license and the alarm permits begin to be required? Is it 19?
So if you, for say, had a cottage business that sold cookies on Plymouth Street, you should already have a business license, but they're really good cookies, Cindy. But yes, it would be immediate. And what was the other question? So alarm permit, again, immediate. However, we're providing you, I think it's what it's. You need to come within the first year, register our alarm. We'd actually send a letter out to all residents, letting them know, welcome to the city, saying here's your application. Come in, fill it out, and you would get that for free, the $43.50 for the first 3 years.
All right, you said this, the measure doesn't have to be voted on, but the city wanted it to be voted on from LAFCO. Say it fails, will the city say, oh well, we put we did what we said we would, but then we're going to run it through anyway?
So by LAFCO law, the city cannot reapply for annexation of this area for 1 year. After that time, could the council try to do it again? Absolutely, they definitely could. The council has not given us any direction one way or the other related to this. So.
Okay, I'm wondering if there are different noise ordinances from the city to the county. I have a neighbor that laughs his music really loud, and the county told me that after 10 o'clock p.m., that he's good until 10 o'clock. And then I have a couple neighbors that park semi-trucks and a taco truck on the street. I don't know if there's any difference between city and county there. And then another neighbor that parks his car on the lawn. And I'm just wondering, these are pet peeves of mine, but if that would change if we're in the city instead of in the county.
I know the answer for a car parked on the grass, which is illegal in the city. I do not know what the current code is in the county, and Arnaldo probably can answer a few more questions. And I know our chief might have answers related to the noise ordinance.
So I can't answer the question about the noise ordinance. I'm not sure what the county's is, but I can tell you that there is a California penal code that applies to disturbing the peace. So that's applicable equally amongst both. And if somebody's disturbing your peace, then we can act on it. Correct.
But there is no county ordinance that is a noise ordinance. Well, they call it the county. They use a 10 o'clock time frame. If they don't have an actual ordinance on the books.
So I'm Arnaldo Rodriguez, the Development Services Director for the city. I'm going to try to tackle the question about the parking of the semi trucks and the food truck on the yard. If it's the city's codes and the county's codes are quite comparable. One of the things that we do at the city, if you report it to the city, the vast majority of our code enforcement activity, and it's in the 90s percentile somewhere, we react to people reaching out to us. So if you were to respond through the YC 311 application, you can just email us, you can give us a phone call, we would send someone out there. Our codes do not permit people, semi-truck drivers, to bring their trucks home and park them on their residence. And neither do we allow people to bring their food vending trucks to park them in their front yard either. If it's within the public right of way, if it's in the street, then that would be forwarded to the police department. However, on private property, it would come to my department. If you weren't sure, then what we tell people is just get it to either the police department, and if it's not theirs, they'll forward it to me. You can send it to me, and then we'll make that decision and forward it on to the chief.
Hello, I'm David. I live on Court. I'd like to know, I've heard multiple numbers about how much revenue money is coming from the county into the city as part of the annexation. And it's just been certain people have said, I don't want to lose the money coming in. I don't know what it is. I've heard 2 million, 1 million, less than $1 million. I was hoping you could tell us what that is.
Absolutely, I'll have Robin, our finance director, who could probably tell you down to the penny.
Not quite.
No pressure at all.
I actually look at the net cost to the city residents as far as what we would add to our budget. And the data I have, we went back and forth between the auditor controller's office and myself, figuring out what the net would look like. The cost for city staffing for the 7 positions we would add to our budget is about $843,000. What we would receive from the county, net of what we're already getting in the form of property taxes, is about $279,000. We expect to receive an additional $354,000 of sales tax revenue for a total revenue transfer between the city and the county of $634,000. So it has a net cost to the city of about $200,000, and that's before adding operating costs for fuel and material supplies and services for patrol cars, things like that. So we came up with a net cost of about $300,000 per year if the Beat 6 area is formed.
So it's a net cost to the city to annex?
It is, for us to start serving Beat 6 area. And we're well aware of that cost. We've built it into our budget, our general fund budget, as proposed for next fiscal year is in excess of $42 million. We certainly have the ability to prioritize and build $300,000 into the budget.
So what does the city want to take on a negative cost at $300,000?
It's kind of a fairness issue. There's this area here that already has city residents in it that aren't receiving city services in their entirety from our police department currently. Yes, it does.
So you're saying that what do you anticipate you have to pay
The amount budgeted, projected with benefits was $133,000. For 5 of them is $665,000. A total of $842,000, just under $843,000 to staff it, and we would by 5.
But yeah, I think maybe the best thing to do after is we'll provide you with written information as a follow-up in email so that you don't mix the numbers up. And if you put your email down, we'll send it to everybody. I just want to make sure that the numbers are, that we have them in a written form where you can look at them. Because I think it gets confusing.
I personally should not have them stand up here. You're the ones, that's the way it works. You know, listen.
I'm gonna let.
I'm gonna leave because I got an appointment that I am in class, just real quick. Look, I've been in the city, guy here, 4 generations, my family, my granddaughters are 6th generation. People don't like change, I get it. I'm not for or against, like I
had to call them for services, they're here. But I tell you, I'm really all for the police department having in here and the extra funds, because let me just tell you, we talked about fairness. What's not fair is having the sheriff's department have to have only, what, 3, 4 officers to completely patrol this entire county? It's ridiculous. I mean, do you know how big this county is? So I'm thankful to have the sheriff or the police department, and Rob, he's done an incredible job. What a great, we're very blessed to have who we have here. So I thank you for your time. Please try to get those questions answered about the septic tank and the hooking up the sewer. Call me about the well, and I'll be voting for you.
Hey, one quick thing. I said I live across the street on Celestial. If we don't get the police department into your annex, are you gonna get the police officers out there during the time of school? When I set up my video camera out there to see the little girls get hurt, and when I reported it to the school, didn't nobody give a chance, and they told me what no money in the fund, but I said, our children. Let's talk about the real children. Right there on Celestial and Galaxy. Them people park in front of my house blocking my driveway. They park right in the crosswalk. And when they do this, it calls a blind spot. Children have to walk out in the street.
It does include.
So if you, the city police department, come in, I hope they would set up and have an officer.
She left her purse.
Because there's ass out over there, and this is one of my neighbors. Our children play out there too. All the time. This ass out, people racing around there. So
It does include traffic enforcement.
So right now,
But again, they have 3 for 600 miles, and we're talking about 7 for about 16 square miles.
Why don't Southern County, why don't we give this money to our county and the government and how it will get?
We can't answer that. We can only address how the city operates.
Okay, good.
but thank you for your comments, Thomas.
So those of you who have questions about septic, we encourage you to contact the city. Come, call, so that we can look at your issue in particular and take a look at where it is. And before you leave, take a look at the maps in the back. We'll show you where the water and sewer lines currently extend to. So Bob, you have one more question? Then we're gonna wrap it up.
Very, very quickly, Bob Renton again. If I could ask Mr. Gale, Darren, could you back up to the alarm situation, the permits and so on? My understanding on alarms is that one thing that's missing on the alarm slide is the required connection to a service like ADT or Golden Bear. There's a bunch of alarm services. The city requires that you must be connected to one of those. And my property on Hun Road is not. Maybe I'm one out of the 2,000 properties, but anyhow, I don't like being forced to connect to a service. Mine just makes a loud noise. My neighbors come out, they call it in. And so that's my point. That service can cost about $300 per year. So we should factor that in. And I have one quick question for Public Works. Our property on Hun Road is on a well, and it's probably about 300 feet from a sewer collector running down South Barrett Road. So my question has to do with leakage that might be occurring at the joints of the pipes on the sewer collector line, or whatever you want to call that, laterals. If there is any kind of, what kind of assurance do we have that there's very little to no leakage of the city responsibility in that line, outside the line, into adjacent properties that might have wells? So that's my question.
So I can address the first part with the alarms. I know that I have very forgiving neighbors, and I think I have great neighbors that would help me out when I had an alarm that went off, but when it's incessantly going off and there's no one to contact, and it goes off repeatedly in the middle of the night, which is our #1 complaint about alarms, we want to have somebody to contact. We're not out here to make money on the alarms, we're out here to solve a problem, which he talked about. 99% of the alarms are false. We definitely want to not charge you if it's an issue that's malfunctioning or something as a result of the alarm company. So we forgive those in certain instances. A lot of times it's just straight neglect, where somebody doesn't fix a problem. We're continuously responding to that. The neighbors are listening to the alarm go off 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's why there's a state law that refers to vehicles that you have to be able to silence it at a certain period of time.
Okay, in regard to the sewer lines, so number one, the State Department of Public Health requires a 10-foot separation between sanitary sewer lines that the city installed and our water mains. And that's to take into account, to make sure that those joints are sealed. And so when we install new sewer lines, we have inspectors that go out and they pressurize the lines, they test the lines, they TV the lines so they can visually inspect them. So after a line's installed, the city has equipment. They have a TV truck where we go through the entire collection system on a routine basis. We put a camera into the sewer lines and we visually inspect them. We also have a maintenance program to clean our sewer lines. So from the perspective of leakage, we're in good shape. The bigger issue would be when you have septic systems that are in your neighbor's yard that are in close proximity to your well. And so we run a lab at the wastewater treatment plant. It's a certified lab through the state. And we often get property owners that come in bringing their well water to have us test because of its proximity to septic systems. So that's the bigger issue.
Okay, last question, and then we're gonna.
Hi, Roger Davies. I live a few blocks that way. I had a question on street maintenance. I brought some of my street that was nearby my house, called the county about this and asked them what, unfortunately, they're not here. Most of the questions seem to be about them. Called them and asked them what their schedule is on repairing the streets in the area. They said, we have no schedule because when it annexes, we're going to give it to the city. So good luck on our streets. So could you comment on basically how the city organizes, reviewing the streets, determining which ones need to be repaired, how often, and are all the streets considered that way at least some point in the future?
Right.
Since obviously we're not being considered.
So Yuba City has a computerized pavement management system where we had individuals that went out and actually inspected the streets, and they created what's called a pavement condition index. That information is put into the computer system, and then annually we run a report in which it suggests which streets should be rehabilitated or repaved. For residential streets, we have a cycle. Ben is at about every 10 years we try to hit all the residential streets. So when you see where you're most cost effective is when you can address streets when they're in good condition, and so you just have to go out and do a slurry seal. When you let streets continue to degrade, where you get to a point where you have to completely reconstruct them, the cost goes up extremely. So for residential streets, we try to hit on a 10-year cycle. For the arterials and collectors, those are extremely expensive, and as you drive around Yuba City and Sutter County, you can see the streets are falling apart. With this major winter that we had in 2017, the streets did not hold up well. I can't tell you today that the city has a magic pill that's going to take care of that, because we don't. We have about $500,000 annually that we can truly put towards pavement rehabilitation. And so the good thing is we do have the pavement management system, so we can look at the streets and figure out what's going to be the most cost-effective thing to do to maintain what we have.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. We have to be out of here in the school, so we're going to be right. Well, we're going to stay for a few minutes, so if you have additional questions, we encourage you to come to...
That's not fair.
I can't hear what he's saying.
Well, I said not behind closed doors.
No, it's open. We're not closing doors. So, anyway, I want to thank everyone for coming, and please take an opportunity to look at those sewer and water line connections, and do not hesitate to call if you have more questions.
Sandy and I
problems that we have is a lot of these folks don't understand the difference between county and city. So they think the city is all of a sudden got to take care of a problem that's a county problem. Such as, you got it, man, such as environmental health with septic systems. That's not the city's problem. It's county environmental health. So if your septic system fails, you've got to work with the county. Now, if you get lucky enough that you can get city sewer, then great. So there needs to be a better understanding for people of what the city's responsibilities are and what the county's responsibilities are. Other than that, I'm out of here. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.